continent to smaller jurisdiction of a country or territory or kingdom or whatever and try to attach to that, right? And then when the way that you attach to that is by proclaiming your nationality. And then that'll automatically line you up with where it is you're supposed to be.
Yeah, but it's like, you have countries, okay, you're going to Jamaica, right?
Right.
Jamaica, we have Chinese people.
Yeah.
Indian people.
Yeah.
So, nationally speaking, we're the same. But I can't tell that Vietnamese and Chin are the same race.
Right, because you're diverse.
Exactly. So,
or the same ethnicity, race, there's one.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Terms. Yeah.
But what I mean, like, that's what I mean, like, kind of like our race. Okay, put it this way. I know sometimes you don't really want to use the word Africa, but like, in my perspective, that Jamaica is an African country because it is populated by 90% African people.
It's populated by 90% more.
Or more. I'm a Maroon. Are we on Maroon? I don't think. No, the Maroons have their own autonomy. They have their papers and everything. I don't get what we're doing.
Right? So if the game is call yourself anything other than Moors. That's the game that they want us to play. Call ourselves anything other than Moors. And once we do that, they'll give us anything that we want. That's all we have to do. Just call ourselves anything but Moors, right? Proof. Is there any evidence to support MSTA members' claims that the NOI was a splinter group from its body? Some obvious indications can be seen in the use of the terms Asiatic for non-whites and colored for Caucasians. The use of these terms were first reported and published in literature of the MSTA, and only later used by the NOI. The term Islamism used by the MSTA in their official literature was also attributed to Mr. Fard and members of the early NOI at least into the 1940s. Another easily recognized trademark of the MSTA was the wearing of the red fez by male members. Quote, this style was carried over to at least 1935 when Elijah Muhammad forbid NOI members from wearing feathers. Why? Like why would you be a member of the temple and then tell people that they're Asiatics, which means that they're Muslim, but then tell them that they can't wear feathers? Because between 1930, 1935, 1940 was the whole, like Brother Jalani says, putting the brick wall in the sand between Moorish Science Temple and Nation of Islam. That's why they're gonna deny to the death that picture of Elijah Muhammad with his fez on. There's an actual picture where they're wearing a fez on, right? Right? You can Google that. It'll come up. 50 pictures will come up.
Yeah, in color.
In color.
You know, it wasn't only him. He had a crew. The Prince of Islam.
Right.
To wear.
Exactly. Right. You know what I mean? So they know. Right? The trademark names of the MSTA were either Bay or L. Amongst the later NOI, under Mr. Fraud, Arabic names were issued along with an identification card. It was not until after 1935 that the use of an X, meaning unknown, as a substitute for a righteous name was established. The original request letter for a righteous name to Mr. Fraud was changed to a request for an X. The identification cards were no longer issued and the new members were told they would get their righteous names on Mr. Fraud's return from Mecca. As the years passed, the original use and purpose of the X was forgotten and the doctrine of Mr. Fraud's return no longer taught. Gradually, only privileged members of the NOI received righteous names. Malcolm X had received Malik El-Shabazz long before his break with the NOI. Cassius Clay, the world heavyweight boxer, received Muhammad Ali, and Louis X became Louis Farrakhan. Rank and file members had to make do with an X given by Chicago and not from the mouth of Allah himself. The Nation of Islam came to the attention of the public again in March 1935. The event described a riot occurred in a courtroom in Chicago. According to newspaper accounts, the group, of which 43 were arrested, don't forget, March 1935, right? So this is after Noble Drew Ali. The event described as a riot occurred in the courtroom in Chicago. According to newspaper accounts, the group, of which 43 were arrested, were identified as Moors, with men wearing red fezzes. They were further identified as Allah Temple of Islam and described in the same report to be an offshoot of Drew Ali's original group. And you can go to the FBI papers on Fard Muhammad, and everything's in there. That he was a member, what his free national name was, all the people that were members of the Moorish movement that turned over into the Temple of Islam, that turned into the Nation of Islam. And prior to Temple of Islam, Allah's Temple of Islam. And then they called it Allah's Temple of Islam because they were calling Fard Muhammad Allah and man. And then Elijah Muhammad has a book saying that, yeah, Allah is, Fard Muhammad in the flesh. Right? Oh, yeah. Right, so we'll pass this around right here. So, right up here in this corner, right here, is Fard Muhammad. And there's Noble Drew Ali right here. So they were chilling together. It's not like they didn't know each other. They didn't have interaction with each other. Right? Right. Right? So
can I ask a question? Yeah. You're saying that at what point did they stop allowing the other members of the NOI to stop wearing the fezzes?
That was 1935.
Who did that?
Elijah Muhammad.
But I thought he was the prophet, right? Wasn't he the prophet?
He was their
so-called leader.
Leader, yeah.
So what was he doing by doing that? So I guess
by
separating them from the feds.
He was separating from the Moorish movement. Because they were about
creating a new movement.
They were about the takeover.
So he was an agent.
Remember the jealous of the fame and nobility of Noble Drew Ali or whatever? Right.
So these are the agents,
the provocateurs that are mentioned in King Alfred plan. So it's not like I'm calling him an agent.
His actions
are
creating.
It's in King Alfred plan that the black Muslims are agents under 24-hour surveillance. Right?
Didn't he say he was a reincarnated Drew Ali?
That was Fard.
They're saying him too.
Yeah, Elijah Muhammad?
Yeah. Point, yeah.
Right.
So Farad is who? Farad now is
Fard Muhammad is before Elijah Muhammad. Right? Common knowledge about Noble Drew Ali that his own people reject. Right? So there's common knowledge amongst everybody who's not Negro, black, colored, or whatever that knows their self, that has a nationality, has a culture. They know about Noble Drew Ali. Right? There's Europeans with websites in honor of Noble Drew Ali. There's Europeans that write books in honor of Noble Drew Ali.
Wax Museum.
Right? Wax Museum. They have Noble Drew Ali up in the Wax Museum next to Elijah Poole Bey. That they say Elijah Muhammad and then they put Elijah Poole Bey in brackets.
Yeah.
So you can know that there's a relation between these two people. Right?
Where is that one?
Baltimore? Yeah. Right? Common knowledge about Noble Drew Ali that his own people reject. 1. Noble Drew Ali was 5 times greater than the last prophets before him. He is the last avatar sent to warn the nations of the earth. Right? So prophets come to warn. Never came to save anybody. Never came to push a religion, dogma, or nothing on anybody. He came to warn the nation of the earth. Noble Drew Ali restored the Moorish Americans as a nation at the 1928 Pan-American Conference for Indigenous Nations. Also in attendance were several tribal chiefs of the continental Indian nation, and the United States were represented by Secretary of State Hughes, who was in awe of the well-established constitution of the Moorish American delegates. After this Pan-American Conference of Human Nations in the United States and the United States' refusal to yield hallowed soil will result in a severe warning by the Holy Prophet. Until my Moors are free in their own home, the worst is yet to come. The United States owe the Moors a great debt they must pay in compound interest. The United States have one more war to win. Negroes, blacks, and colored people denounce the prophethood of Noble Drew Ali. Noble Drew Ali was born in 1886 and died of mysterious circumstances. 2 Americans of African descent who were rumored to have studied under Jamal ad-Din al-Afghani were the parents of the man who would one day establish Moorish science in the United States. According to one legend, Noble Drew Ali made a pilgrimage to North Africa, where he studied with Moorish scholars and received a mandate from the King of Morocco to instruct Moorish Americans of African descent in Islamism. On his return to the United States in 1913, he had a dream in which he was ordered to found a movement to uplift fallen humanity by returning the nationality, divine creed, and culture to the persons of Moorish descent in the Western Hemisphere. Now, just to qualify Noble Drew Ali receiving the mandate from the King of Morocco to instruct Americans of African descent in Islamism. When you go into the Circle 7 Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple, there's a picture in there of Sultan Abdul Aziz Suwad, which was the Sultan during the time of the Prophet. Now, if Noble Drew Ali was a fraud, I'm pretty sure the Sultan wouldn't have this picture be in this book. If Noble Drew Ali was a fraud, there would have to be some type of documentation from the Sultan saying that this guy has to remove my picture from this book. Because he's a Sultan, and you don't just go around put their pictures in your book just because you want to do that. Right? This is international protocol. Right? It's international protocol that they put that if you have authority from somebody, that you present that person. You don't say, I have the authority from the Queen, and then you don't show me anything from her, saying that you and her had a conversation or anything like that, right? On his return to the United States in 1913, he had a dream in which he was ordered to found a movement to uplift fallen humanity by returning the nationality, divine creed, and culture to the persons of Moorish descent in the Western Hemisphere. Noble Drew Ali traveled to see President Woodrow Wilson, and here he sat and they challenged him. Drew Ali raised his right hand, and light filled the room. Noble Drew Ali asked the president to teach his people, and they asked him, are you talking about the Negroes? He replied, there are no Negroes, colorfuls, or black people, or Ethiopians. They are descendants of ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwest and southwest shores of Africa. I came for the flag of our ancient forefathers. The president stated, it is not yet your time. Ali answered, I have been appointed in due time by Allah, the great God of the universe. One of the president's counsels asked, what kind of flag is your flag? Drew Ali said, you have it hidden in your vault. So they went to the vault room. They began to bring out all kinds of modern day flags. Ali stated, "You know it is much older than these." They began to dig deeper and came up with a red flag and said, "This is the flag of Morocco." The Prophet said, "I am here for the Moorish flag, that which you call a cherry tree." Then they dusted off an old flag that was red with a 5-point green star in the center. The President and Council stared amazed at the exactness of the Holy Prophet. The President then said, "We have had them so long that they will not follow anyone else, and to tell them would be like putting pants on a mule." The Prophet stated, "My flock knows my voice." After a while, he left and returned to his people. Right? So, we're talking about presidents during the time of Noble Dwali, knowing who he is. Knowing that the land on this side is called Morocco. And that if anybody is on this side, that they're protected under the Moorish Empire. Once they come to this side of the earth, once they come to the Western Hemisphere. So all you have to do is enforce the constitution of this land and you're protected. Because that's how it was set up. But with people assuming that they're black people and that they're Negro and that they're colored people, right? They waive or they abandon their claim to what's theirs because they're trying to claim it under a name that isn't identified by anybody. It's not recognized by anybody, right? We go to Morgan Freeman. Now this was floating around. I don't know how old it is, but this was floating around with Morgan Freeman's perspective of black history, right? And keep in mind that Morgan Freeman is also Lucius Fox, right? From Batman, Imhotep, right? Azim in Prince of Thieves, right? He wasn't a black guy, right? And he was God in Bruce Almighty.
The more in Prince of Thieves.
Yeah.
Like the more.
Like the more.
Like
You have to show them
how to do everything.
how to live.
Right.
He had all the knowledge. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then remember, he was God in Bruce Almighty. Right? He was himself. Right? So, interviewer. Black History Month, you find Morgan Freeman ridiculous. Interviewer, why? Morgan Freeman, you're going to relegate my history to a month? Interviewer, oh come on. Morgan Freeman, what do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? Interviewer, pause. Well, I'm Jewish. Morgan Freeman, okay. Which month is Jewish History Month? Interviewer, there isn't one. Morgan Freeman, oh, why not? Do you not want one? Interviewer, no. Morgan Freeman, right. I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history. Interviewer, how are we going to get rid of racism? Morgan Freeman, stop talking about it. Right?
Giving it an existence.
Right? Giving it an existence. Just by talking about it. Right?
You gonna finish that book?
Huh? Yeah, the dog was just like, all right, family, it's long.
Thank you for the
Give thanks to who was proper. Yeah, that was it.
Well, that's one thing, because right after that, the very next slide, you know what he said? He said, how about you stop calling me a black man and I'll stop calling you a white man?
For real. Okay. And that's the part that they left out, that they're putting out there, you know, they're gonna put this thing out there, but they're gonna leave out the part.
I saw the clip, I watched the whole.
For real. Okay. So make sure you check out the Morgan Freeman clip.
Okay.
All right. Now this is from 1906, dealing with, or this is a report submitted on citizenship to the Committee on Foreign Affairs. This is in 1906, right? There are strictly speaking, no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco. The fundamental laws of this non-Christian country are based entirely upon the Islamic code, no part of which treats the subject of citizenship. There are, however, numerous treaties and conventions between the various Christian countries and the Moorish Empire, by means of which citizenship in this country is defined. But as I understand from the above acknowledged instructions, that it is not the desire of the department to call for a report upon such lines, I will therefore confine these remarks to general conditions existing, which may possibly be of some use in connection with the information desired. 1. Citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure as Moorish subjects.
Cannot prove foreign
Citizenship. So if you can't prove foreign citizenship when you're in Morocco, you're automatically a Moor.
That makes sense. The country of Morocco consider they recognize you guys as are outside Moors.
The country of Morocco, yeah, North Africa, Morocco, they just came about in 1956. That's documented by them. So if we acknowledge that the Kingdom of Morocco recognizes us, then our recognition only goes to 1956.
Usually in the Moroccan temple since 1913, we had the flag before they had it. That's weird, right? It's weird still.
Right?
But yeah.
Good.
Then how did they adopt it?
I think they're part of the, correct me if I'm wrong, they're part of the Moorish Empire. So like all Moors, you have the right to inherit your flag.
Right.
Them being ones decided to yeah, let's do it. But these were quote unquote black people. They were more the mixed children that mixed down and mixed down and mixed down to what you could do. Yeah.
Right. And also too remember that if we follow Noble Drew Ali's idea, right, that the first name of Africa is a Mexam. Right? When Africa was called a Mexam, all the continents were one. So a Mexam also includes over here. So when we say, want to go back to Africa, you're already there, because over there and over here was one landmass at one time.
So that why the Olmecs, they say the Olmecs were Mandinka, because they spoke Mende language and blah, 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 blah. So it's like they're the same people. So West Africans, yeah, same thing, right? We're not Africans.
We're go back to King Alfred's plan, right? The minority will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by heritage, and no political asylum will be available in other countries. Well, how come? If that's where you say that you come from, right? If you say that you come from across the Atlantic and somebody stole you from over there, then that should be where you go back to, right? If you commit a crime or whatever, right? But why they keep putting people in jail or sending them to continental American territories when they commit a crime? Why don't they send them back to Africa?
They even tried to when they built the colony in Liberia, and then when they treated that's still not working.
Right.
It's still obvious, like you guys kind of full of stunt, trying to bring people from here over there when
it's something that can't be done. Because the because these people over here are Moorish subjects.
Yeah, they want to be here.
They are the Aboriginal and Indigenous people of the Americas. So you can't deport them somewhere. All you can do is put them in a jail and house them. And most of the time, that's happening because the Moors want to be Negro, black, colored, African American, Canadian, Jamaican, or whatever, which puts them in that colony, commonwealth, whatever jurisdiction, right? 2 and 3. Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire.
Naturalized.
So Moors who always been in this land were labeled or branded or called names that weren't theirs. And being that they were called those names, they became naturalized into the U.S. quote unquote fake citizenry. And now they're pushing that fake citizenry as their position, that they are citizens of America or whatever. When you're not going to be a citizen if you're the Aboriginal people. Like you're the owner, right? It's actually yours. You can't be a citizen of your own stuff. You can make somebody a citizen if they're outside of your jurisdiction. You can bring them in, right? And they would be what you call juristic. But if anything kicks off, you're sending them back where they come from. Logically.
Okay, yeah.
Right? You're not gonna keep them over here if they did something wrong. Just send them back to where they come from.
But isn't maybe a reason why they would do something like that because they know the system makes a lot of money.
Right. Exactly. Right.
They need the money. Why do they need the money?
Yeah.
Because you have states that have their own constitution, that have their own laws. And then you free all these people, right? And you make them citizens not of the individual state, because the states didn't want to make them citizens. Some states did, some states didn't. But it was that on the federal level, saying, okay, now anywhere in this continental United States jurisdiction, you are now free, and you're a member, and you're a citizen of that federal state, that union of states, right? Well, now you need money federal money in order to take care of these people, right? Instead of state money.
Don't want that.
Right, because then the federal gets bigger, and the founding fathers said, let each state have its own rights, and don't let the federal government grow too big, otherwise these problems are going to happen. That was their whole concept. They were telling the future, don't let this happen, and then 13th Amendment came around, and it happened.
And the 13th Amendment was.
You get it right here.
Yeah.
13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments attempted to protect blacks, but their effectiveness was undermined with the passing of the Jim Crow laws in the South and the development organized resistance to black rights, an example of the KKK. The 13th Amendment was passed by both houses of Congress and signed into law by President Lincoln February 1st, 1865, and provided for the compensation of both the slave and the slaveholder, land and naturalization. It was replaced by what we see today as the 13th Amendment with only 2 sections on January 31st, 1865, and was never properly ratified along with the 14th and 15th Amendments. So the original 13th Amendment had 20 sections, and the section most pertinent to Negro, black, colored people is Section 12, that says the traffic in slaves with Africa, right? So the traffic of slaves with Africa. That means Africa was down with it.
Yeah.
Right? So it wasn't no Europeans selling people or whatever. Like Africans were in on it, right? So the traffic enslaved with Africa is hereby forever prohibited on pain of death and the forfeiture of all the rights and property of persons engaging therein. And the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. And then they got rid of that, and then they replaced it with 13th Amendment, Section 1. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. 2. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So in Section 1, they're saying that slavery or involuntary servitude isn't allowed unless it's for punishment of a crime. So that's how they created the whole jail idea and put people in prison, right?
And this was
13th.
draft came up when?
This was 13th Amendment, 1865, right?
And the first one was?
And the first one was it was 1865 that they initiated it with the 20 sections, and then by February 1865 they replaced that one with the one with only 2 sections. And then Section 1 saying that neither slavery or involuntary servitude, except as punishment of a crime. So slavery is abolished unless you volunteer to be a slave, or unless you committed a crime.
And when did they say, what other significant
Emancipation Proclamation
of
of the slaves, so-called.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 1865?
No, 58.
1858.
Yeah. Okay, so the fraud of the amendments and also too, even the 13th Amendment with the 20 sections was fraud because the original Constitution only had 10 amendments, right? So if you're doing your research on the Constitution for the United States, you're looking for where it stops at the 10 amendments. If you have like 11 to 20 something amendments, then you already know that that's the added on, the Constitution that they added stuff on. And then as they go, they add stuff on, and then they put that out as the Constitution. And they add stuff on, and they put that stuff out of it. But they can't take stuff out of it, out of the original. All they could do is mess with the after the 10 amendments, which is what they always keep messing with, right? This was on a blog by somebody by the name of David B. Bell, and this was in 2011. Just going through that fact that everybody knows except us, and they put it out there, and we still don't want to accept the reality. Normalized by the 1500s, the Alexander Rubio's Christian construct supporting the subjugation of non-European land and peoples is driving the colonization of the Americas. In 1557, Pedro de Santander, an official of the Catholic Church, places a new spin on an old paradigm. He writes concerning the indigenous people of Florida. This is the land of promise, possessed by idolaters, the Amorite, Amalekite, Moabite, and Canaanite. This is the land promised by the eternal Father to the faithful, since we are commanded by God in the Holy Scriptures to take it from them, being idolaters, and by reason of their idolatry and sin, to put them all to the knife, leaving no living thing save maidens and children, their cities robbed and sacked, their walls and houses leveled to the earth. By imagining the Americas as the land of promise and the indigenous of the land as idolaters and Canaanites, Santander endorses Spain's colonization and genocidal policy. Such imaging permits Europeans to believe themselves Israelite, the Atlantic Ocean as the Jordan River, and the Americas as Canaan. Reworking of the Christian text allows the chosen people, quote-unquote Europeans, to cross the Jordan River, quote-unquote Atlantic Ocean, and enter into the land of Canaan, the Americas, as promised by the Eternal Father to the faithful. Thus, Santander creates a hierarchical chosen people mindset where Europeans are chosen people of a higher and more advanced class who have dominion over indigenous peoples who are idolaters of a lower and more backward class. Right? Now, that's 1557. 1557, they're admitting that one, this is the land of promise, and that the people of this land are Amorite, Amalekite, Moabite, and Canaanite. It's the same thing that Noble Drew Ali said, right? But then we go to 1968, and Martin Luther King delivering his famous speech at the Mason Temple, which became the Church of God in Christ headquarters in Memphis. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now because I have been to the mountaintop. And I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over. And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
And then Jesse Jackson tried to give him a high five in the bro spot. Right after that.
Right? And then to back everything up, right? Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Their dominion and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa, across the great Atlantis, even unto the present north, south, central America, and also Mexico and the adjoining islands, before the great earthquake which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. So if Europeans are out there talking about the land of the Americas is in actuality and in fact the promised land, yes, give that to me, right? If that's the promised land, right? Martin Luther came and said that he seen the promised land. Said that he'd been to the mountaintop, looked over and saw the promised land, and you know, we're gonna get there eventually, right? We have to recognize the codes that are being laid down, that have been laid down, that we never pay attention to. Why? Because we're distracted by these black, Negro, colored, African, whatever organizations trying to sell us an idea that we're something that we're not. And then we're buying it. Right? All these guys, Seti, all these guys, Ali Muhammad, whoever. All these people who make claims that they're for their people and, you know what I mean? Go watch Hidden Colors, 1 and 2. They still call people black in both of them. And the people that's calling them black are people who study Moorish history. And they got fezzes on in some of their videos, calling themselves L and all that. But, you know, it's like me and X were talking about, you know, it's, you know, we started, you know, connecting with Exodus movement because they're doing things from a help humanity perspective, not help black people or help African people or whatever, help humanity, right? So they have a slogan, we're not a minority. But, we're talking like, it's kind of funny that, majority of people have "We Are a Minority" t-shirt, they're a minority. They call themselves black, Negro, colored. They call themselves that. But they're gonna push that they're not that. When there's more that come around them, that they can, like, it's not even rocket science. Just like, it was Exodus movement. And that's it. Nothing else. Then a slogan came called "We're Not a Minority," which is basically saying that, I'm not Negro, black, colored, African, or whatever. I'm the majority. And the majority is only known as more. Everywhere. Internationally. The minority Pakistani, Sri Lankan, Indian as a majority or a collective is called more. The Cambodian, Filipino, whatever, they call themselves whatever, as a majority, they're called Moros. Right? Even that, you talk to all the First Nations people, they're going to show you, total poles with feathers on. Right? Yeah. Right? You know what I mean? It's common. It's common that everybody knows. And Woodrow Wilson came, told us, what he had to tell us. And, for people to push a perspective and not talk about him when their foundation is based on him, when any group that we see today that our people belong to, other than Shriners and, Freemasonic groups, their origin is 1920. 1920 till now. There is no black organizations before 1920. And the only black organization that was before the 1920 was the Freedmen's Bureau. And the Freedmen's Bureau was set up to get you not to be black. To give you your land back, give you your 40 acres, your mule, and go about your business. Because slavery is abolished. But they got rid of that.
So that was an attempt?
That was a try. That was a try. To actually bring these people, the Negro problem, right? Try to fix this problem somehow.
To get them back into like
the society, but properly, yeah, into their own, but properly, not through proclamations and things done by people in political power.
Okay. It's like you said, Article 12 on the original 15th Amendment talked about Africans should not be citizens, right? Well, then obviously, everybody, dark-skinned person who's already there would have to then have the concept that even if an African came, that person could never be a citizen. Meanwhile, they had just been made citizens. So there would be a difference. Right. After that, it's just that way. Right. So there was that original. You understand the original law, and then they shortened it into right. Now, yeah, Africans keep coming, right? And maybe people doing illegal slavery, and Africans are saying, well, I'm African. And then, right, you have people here who don't know, and they say, well, okay, maybe I'm African too. That's my guess is that's what they're called. That's what they're called, right? Because they were tricked too to thinking that that's the name of where they come from, not the name of where they come from. Right.
Quote, as a student of history, I also know civilization's debt to Islam. It was Islam at places like Al-Azhar that carried the light of learning through so many centuries, paving the way for Europe's Renaissance and Enlightenment. It was innovation in Muslim countries. That developed the order of algebra, our magnetic compass and tools of navigation, our mastery of pens and printing, our understanding of how diseases spread and how it can be healed. Islamic culture has given us majestic arches and soaring spires, timeless poetry and cherished music, elegant calligraphy and places of peaceful contemplation. And throughout history, Islam has demonstrated through words and deeds the possibilities of religious tolerance and racial equality. I also know that Islam has always been a part of America's society. The first nation to recognize my country was Morocco. In signing the Treaty of Tripoli in 1796, our second president, John Adams, wrote, "The United States has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslims." And since our founding, American Muslims have enriched the United States. They have fought in our wars, they have served in our government, they have stood for civil rights, they have started businesses, they have taught our own universities. They've excelled in our sports arenas. They've won Nobel Prizes, built our tallest buildings, and lit the Olympic torch. And when the first Muslim American was recently elected to Congress, he took the oath to defend our Constitution using the same Holy Quran that one of our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, kept in his personal library. And that's 2009 transcript, Speech to the Muslim World by Barack Obama. Right? So he's even telling everybody, and this is recent, 2009. Told everybody, Islam has always been a part of American society. The first nation to recognize my country was Morocco. Whoa. Like putting it out there.
In Egypt, he said it.
And in Egypt, he said it. When U.S., United States, it's a private corporation.
Maybe just mentioned the Treaty of Citizenship and that's what he found.
Yeah. Right.
Saying more because Muslim.
Right. You know, and then the whole thing he's talking about Muslim what, Muslim this, Muslim that. But then he mentions Europe's Renaissance. That has nothing to do with Muslim. If you go check the record, it doesn't say Muslim during that time period. No. It says more during that time period. Right? Right? Now, remember that was President Barack Obama. Right? Now, you who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those that know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money doesn't make the man. It's free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship by name and principle, you have no true wealth. And I'm hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Not American citizens of the U.S. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of the government. I am depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America. Now, how is he able to make the statement that that's our constitution for the United States of America if he has nothing to do with it? He obviously has something to do with it if he's calling it our. And what was he doing? Like Grand Chief Nature was breaking down, was that after Congress started doing their job, stopped doing their job of administering for the nation, and they sold out their position to the corporate body, the de jure body had to pick up that slack. And this is where the temple comes in with having a divine constitution, This is where the temple comes in with the whole divine trust, theocratic government, being able to teach government, us proclaiming our nationality. And when we proclaim our nationality, nobody really making the statement that, when you proclaim nationality, you become a citizen of the great republic. But people think that being a member is different than being a citizen. When member and citizen are synonymous terms.
Yeah.
Just like Africa and Moor. African and Moor are synonymous terms that they use at the same time to identify people who look like us. But ultimately, one of them isn't really the name of the people. Just like ultimately, one of them isn't really the government. Somebody has to be running a fraud, because if there's a dollar bill and there's two seals on the back of the dollar bill and people are only talking under one seal, like something's up. And then the seal that nobody's talking about, everybody's trying to pin that on the people that are the Illuminati, the elite, the people that are running secret societies, and they're not even claiming it. And you don't hear Masons, Freemasons come out and say, yeah, that's our seal. The pyramid seal is ours. Walking around with it, holding it, showing it around. They don't do that. Because they know that that's not theirs.
It's only conspiracy theorists who are like, oh, I've seen a triangle in Jay-Z's video.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that means
that.
Oh, yeah.
He's this or he's that.
And then they don't talk about the most obvious thing on that same side, on the other side of the same side of the bill, which is in the middle of the bill, which is the phrase one. In God we trust one. Just because it's a bigger font. Right, still part of the phrase. Still part of it. It's not just a word, it's randomly out there.
Right. Yeah, just one, because it's the $1 bill. So
no. In God we trust one. But that's Islam.
Right? So everybody likes to make statements like, well, are the Moors recognized by, is Noble Juali recognized by these guys or this person, or who's the one that, makes you guys say that you're Moors and it's recognized and you could go to court in your free national name, whatever, right? 2012, November, Canada signed on to United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. They signed on to it after not signing on to it since 56 or whatever, 48 or whatever, right? President Obama, December 2010, signed on to the declaration, right? All the declarations. Declaration of the Rights of a Child, Article 3. The child shall be entitled from his birth to a name and nationality. Like, international community recognizes that, because almost everybody signed on to that now. So everybody knows that child from his birth shall be entitled to a nationality. There ain't no Negro, black, colored people out there nationalizing their children. They're gonna call their children Stephen, Johnson, and everything else. When they get violated, they're going to tell people that they're violating their rights that are laid down in the declarations by the United Nations. But they don't have a nationality. When that's Article 3, that's high on the list. And they haven't even got there yet. So if they miss that, cool. They put out Declaration for Human Rights. And then they took it a step further even in the Declaration of Human Rights, that everyone has the right to a nationality. And even though you have that right, nobody is to be deprived of that nationality or denied the right to change it. So if you believe in your heart you're a black guy, and you find out that's not a nationality, you have a right to change that. To get yourself back in line with the human family. Like you have a right to do that. It's not a privilege. But if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. A majority of people out there, you ask them, what's your nationality? Oh, I'm black. My nationality is Jamaican. My nationality is, I don't know what my nationality is. I'm just, living in Canada. Like statements like that, get your ass kicked. Because international communities, when they come over here, they don't play those games there. Either you know who you are or you don't. If you don't know who you are, then you're subject to anything that people want to do to you. And you can't do anything about it when they do it either. Right? Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. Right? Every indigenous individual has the right to a nationality. So they even came out for the Indians. Metis and First Nations and whatever they want to call themselves. Fraud. That even indigenous people have a right to a nationality. But they're not claiming nothing. They want to go march, picket, do whatever under that brand of a tribe that they're claiming or under the brand of Indian. And then the ones who claim that, well, we don't really accept the term Indian or whatever, just ask them if they pay taxes. And then they'll say no, because they'll show you an Indian tax card. Which means that even if you don't call yourself Indian, you have the card in your pocket, you're Indian. Just because you have the card. And by having the card, then that's consent. And once you consent, you're done for. Like these people, like Brother David said last week, these people will kill you and eat you. Literally. Literally. They will kill you and eat you if they can. Just because, it's nothing to do with them. If you had a nationality, you wouldn't have that problem. If you had a nationality, you don't have to worry about people picking you off the street thinking that you're a slave and tie you behind a truck and drag you somewhere. Right? Couple more things to touch on. Papal bulls of the 15th century gave Christian explorers the right to claim lands they discovered and lay claim to those lands for their Christian monarchs. Any land that was not inhabited by Christians was available to be discovered, claimed, and exploited. If the quote-unquote pagan infidels inhabited, if pagan, they could be converted, they might be spared. If not, they could be enslaved or killed. The doctrine of discovery is a concept of public international law expounded by the United States Supreme Court in a series of decisions, initially in Johnson versus McIntosh in 1823. The doctrine was Chief Justice John Marshall's explanation of the way in which colonial powers laid claim to newly discovered lands during the Age of Discovery. Under it, title to new discovered lands lay with the government whose subjects discovered the new territory. The doctrine has been primarily used to support decisions of invalidating or ignoring aboriginal possession of land in favor of colonial or post-colonial governments. So when Europeans came over and they saw land that they wanted, all they had to do was say that the people on the land are infidels, the people on the land are pagans, and we can take their land. And then they had the queen, the popes, the kings, or whatever, signing off on all their whatever, so they can have that power to do that. But all that comes back to jurisdictional things, again. Because when you're under occupation, the occupying force has to give you room in order for you to exercise under occupation. They can't just do martial law and clamp everything down. Nobody can go to the store. Nobody can do nothing. They have to leave some room for, common activity to take place. And again, this is why Drew Ali said, if you don't do anything else, declare your nationality. Because at least if you do that, if you at least even do that, forget even coming to the temple and coming to meetings and classes or whatever. Just proclaim your nationality. Just with that alone, If you go out there into the world and these people try to come at you, you can tell them so. And there's Moors in here with feathers, without feathers that you can talk to that they'll tell you. Like straight that police don't come around and they don't, 208 cards and all that. Like they don't do it. Right? Not because of, some power or some whatever, but it's like the movie. You know who we are. We're not dumb niggers. Like, yeah, I might have a hoodie on, North Face jacket or whatever, saggy jeans, sneakers, but don't misunderstand what you see, right? That's what Brother Adiza was talking about at the end, that at least, we have the power to sue after if they do something, right? At least we have that power, right? Another thing that I'm going to pass around, these are pictures of Turks that just came to America and got nationalized, right? Pass that around. Just so everybody can see that, the Turks know what's up when they came over here. The founder of the Ottoman Empire, that is now called the Turkish state or Turkish Empire, was Osman Bey, nicknamed Kara. In Western accounts, the two names Ottoman and Turkey were used interchangeably in relation to the Turkish state during the age of the empire. This dichotomy was officially ended in 1923 when the Ankara-based Turkish regime favored Turkey as a sole official name, which has been one of the European names of the state since Seljuk times. And remember that 1920 to 23, a lot of people, nations out there started implementing a lot of Moorish attire into their customary wardrobe, because by the 1900s it was said that the Moors were just chattel property, nigger slaves, whatever, and everything that they have is up for grabs. Especially Moors in the Americas, right? This is why you see, from the time of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, Articles of Confederation, United States Constitution, etc., this Masonic influence in the Americas, in government, in society, there's always this underground network of people wearing fezzes and having temples called all these Arabic names, right? You have George Washington's Masonic Museum, right, in Virginia, where they have the showcases and everything with fezzes in there, Ben Bay's fez, and ample people in government who had fezzes, lodges and all that. Oil paintings of Europeans with Islam on their fez and Arabia on their fez. All these names that supposedly these guys are Christians, but their foundation is Islamic influence, right? That's why the Shriner's original name is the Ancient Arabic Order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, because they know that Arabs are Moors. That's why you got the fezzes. That's why the pattern is the same with them. But again, when we come to our people, right? This is right Malcolm X's daughter. Malcolm X's daughter wear a fez on, and it's white. It means that she has certain degrees of information that she received. But they're not gonna rep her. They're not gonna push her for Black History Month, right? Atala Shabbat. Huh? I don't know. It's on there though. The name of the photographer is on there. Right.
Well, not like this, just like this. Well, yeah.
And lastly, just so we could, just before we close out, we're gonna hand on the pictures that they were talking about at the last week lecture. One picture is Hillary Clinton with Hillary Clinton in the Ben Franklin room, and she's in the Americas, but she has behind her the Moroccan flag and the United States flag, right? And then the other picture is the picture of Barack Obama and the First Lady, and they're coming through a door, and on one side there's a guard holding the American flag, so-called American flag, stars and stripes, and then on the other side is a guard holding the Moroccan flag.
Which one?
And this, like, yeah.
When was this one?
Yeah, that was the, when they came back, I think that's when they came back from Egypt.
Oh, okay.
When they came back from Egypt. Right? And what we're beginning to understand is that because of the impact that the fraudulent U.S. has had across the world, they have to now put up the front that they are the legitimate United States of America Republic. Because they lied to all these allies, and all these allies are starting to figure out little pieces to the puzzle. So their approach is, well, if we put up the guise that we are the republic, then it'll kind of ease the pressure off, while in the background they're liquidating all their assets, or you know, in those movies where they're gonna do the audit, and then the guy's up there 12 o'clock at night shredding stuff. That's where they're at right now. That's where the U.S. is right now. Right? They have to shred all these mountains of paper that they've been piling up, running a fraud. And the international community, like the international community is not passive like American people with occupation. American meaning Negro, Black, colored people more, right? When international community gets fed up with, you know, corporate people trying to push democracy on them and all that type of stuff, either they, you know, gather up the crew, get some pitchforks, and they go handle stuff, or they start strap bombs on themselves and go into these places that the corporate governments are seeking protection on their land and blowing up stuff, right? And that's why Hillary was even in the Ben Franklin room making the speech, because of all the bombings and stuff going on at U.S. embassies across the world. So they have to put up the front that we are still the Muslim founded government. They still have to play that role. But they're playing that role so their ass doesn't get kicked in wars. They're not playing that role because they're trying to help anybody but themselves. Right. Yeah. Because if they did say that, then they're going to have to stop saying that they're a democracy. And if they stop saying that they're a democracy, then that means that, you know, all those guys lose their job, because you can't say that you can't be part of the republic saying that you're a democracy, right? It's not legit. So before we close out, is there any questions, comments, or anything like that before we close? The next session, next week Sunday, continuing the Rethinking Black History Month. If you have time, go on YouTube and check out Professor I Self. Professor I-Self. And that's what we're going to be doing next week. And the brother's, you know, scholar, you know, he studies, does the work. He's also the Sifu also, right? So it's gonna be he just put out a book dealing with the what's it called? It's called Red Pill, Blue Pill, and it's dealing with the finesse, brainwash skills of some of the people in the black community that do speeches and stuff like that, and how they use brainwashing and manipulation in their speeches to get people to follow their whatever it's called. Right? Yeah. So it should be pretty heavy. Right? So that'll be next week. Yeah, we're Skyping them. The week after that, we have Grand Chief Nature El Bay. I think Tim and some other Moors are going to be doing lectures for Black History Month at the temple, and that day is just going to be a day that they're doing a lecture. And for the end of the month, Asir the Duke of Tyr. So if y'all know about Asir, you know how Asir gets down, and we're going to be Skyping him too. And the pattern right now is Skype, because free, we have to expense ourselves bringing people here and all that. So if there's anybody who out there that you want to do something, let us know. Or if you have their contact, let them know you got ability to do that, and you can do that. Other than that, yep, 4 o'clock. The only one that'll change is Grand Chief Nature. I think that one's at 3. I think they're doing 3 to whatever, because they're gonna pretty go on all night, something like that. So with that, we give thanks for everybody's attention and time. We're just gonna close out. We'll just close out with the prayer, and we're in our spot, so if you still want to eat, there's still food upstairs and stuff. If there's still food, y'all can fix up upstairs.
I just want to make an announcement in terms of when we put on the lectures, we ask for donation. For today, it's $10. So when you're leaving, just give a donation to the Cal upstairs. And also, we have DVDs and we have books as well. We have the prices up there. We also have shirts to sell. So it's just basically to go towards the upkeep of the temple and upkeep of the man.
And then there was also too, like we saw new people bringing people.
Yeah.
This is the idea that we want to implement, right? Because there isn't, it really is nationalized or you're done for. Like that's really what it is. Europeans not playing around because they already have their plan in place and they're implementing it. You can go Google the FEMA coffins and all that. FEMA concentration camps and all these forts that turn to concentration camps and all that. Like, it's not something they're working on. It's something that's implemented. All they're waiting for is the bodies to go fill those stuff up. Yeah, where they started housing the, so do what you can to know your rights, so at least you can protect yourself from getting caught up in those places. Because guarantee, if you know what your rights are, guarantee it's harder for them to rape you. Guarantee, right? And that's experience from building with Moors that are in this territory, not Moors across the border. We don't know if that works here and all that stuff. We're talking about Moors right now. Moors who are dealing with cases right now that they can't move. They just have to keep adjourning. They have to keep switching courtrooms and whatever, and never a guilty or whatever, never adjudication. Because all we have to do is proclaim our nationality. Once you have a nationality, that slams the door on those people. No jurisdiction. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a challenge because, it's 100 years later and we're just getting on this. When other people been on this, we were talking about Liberia. One of the brothers last week was breaking down that Liberia was the last nation to recognize Israel when they wanted to get their independence. They use a fraud to recognize a fraud. And now everybody thinks that both these frauds are legit. Right? Ignorant people. Why are they talking about that for Black History Month? The fraud of Liberia. The fraud of Kwanzaa. And Karenga's a CIA agent. That's information that they need to be putting out there. But they don't, because all of them came out to plan agents put in place 24-hour surveillance, ambassadors in African countries and all that, and their purpose is to get you to call yourself anything but more.
What about all those doctors, like, medical doctors, program, and doctors?
Like for example,
a lot of people following that.
Yeah.
Views, how come they're not mentioning? Like they'll mention that, oh, I was a more,
Yeah.
I studied it more, but then they'll leave it like that. It's the nationality of more than a lot of.
Yeah. A lot of them declare it, but declare it and being active with it that's two different things. Yeah. Anybody can say they're more.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing nothing with it.
Yeah, but applying it.
Right. Look at like for example, Jose Pimenta Bay. His book says Jose Pimenta Bay on it. Like he's a professor in the university. And his book says Jose Pimenta Bay on it. Right? And then certain people, they say that they're LB and all that, but then when you go check their literature, it was no different than, you say that you're conscious, you know yourself and all that. All right, cool. Then they get drawn on and they're showing you a license with a slave name on it. But they're conscious people. You know what I mean? That's like one of the Moroccan brothers called or something like that about, well, I want to bring my family, to martial arts classes. Open to everybody, like come on. Well, I have one question. You guys have white people up in there coming to learn and stuff like that? Yeah. Oh, well then I can't bring my family there and whatever. This is a conscious person. So-called conscious person. Right? Right? You know what I mean? So-called conscious person. They have a store down the street. Right? Malachi York said he's a Moor. Malachi York was at his trial with Fezon and all that. Right? Yeah, that was his problem. A lawyer. Oh yeah, and his lawyer was European. And I didn't hear no Nuwapians talking about, hey, Dr. Locke has a European lawyer. We're not going to follow that guy. We're not going to support that guy. They chased him down.
I'm trying to call today from that same energy inquiring about martial arts class.
Yeah, that's all I was talking. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah. You know what I mean? Everybody knows and has been told. And few people are carrying out their charge. Because when you get on this right here, all those little handouts that you get, government checks and grants and whatever, all that stuff cut off. All that stuff cut off. Because you can't do the victim thing no more. And the only way you're going to get yourself in any of those contracts or whatever is if you know how to live within those. Because you can't just go put your name down. Oh yeah, I know about Moorish information, so I'm going to get a credit card and not pay it. Because, you know what I mean? That's not really me, that's a corporation. But if you sign that without knowing how to live within that and how to sign that properly so you're not liable when they say, you're liable, can't do nothing for you.
You notice that's a lot of the pull is that people don't want to risk that, okay, we have this now and we should be thankful because we have this and blah, 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 blah. So a lot of the fighters, we would have had this done if our people were going through that.
Yeah.
This would be done
a long
not
time.
hard.
System would have fell and everything.
Right. 1 hour. It's just one decision.
One nationality or that simple.
Yeah, of course, we'd have to live accordingly and, live in government amongst each other after that. But that's a lot of the fear to it, that people don't want to strap up and work at that. They're actually more comfortable with sitting down and just not thinking and just going through a machine. Like in Matrix, like you have the choice, red pill or blue pill. And some people actually say, you know what? I rather actually, yeah, that like the guy who shot. And wants to go Cypher.
I know it's just in my mind, but I can't give this up, man.
Can't give it up.
I can't stand this whole shit.
So yeah, so give thanks. Let's close out with the prayer and keep the energy nice and easy. If those who want to partake, you can. If not, you can just be humble. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe. Father of love. Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is our protector. Our guide. And our salvation. By night and by day. Through His holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali. Islam. Thank you, Morris. Peace. No problem, bro.